Nope.
Do you want me to make you the co-host?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Are we all set? Now we are. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to Community Board 4's Social and Racial Justice Task Force meeting for February. This is, as you may have just noticed, it is being live streamed on YouTube, and it is also being recorded, and it will be available on our website. We are meeting via Zoom now per the Governor Hochul's orders during this time, so that satisfies the open meeting laws. And we are glad to all come together. And as you all know, this is February 2022, and February is Black History Month. And so first up on our agenda, first, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Katie Stokes. I'm one of the co-chairs of Community Board 4. And I see we have some more of our folks just joining. But as I was saying, this is Black History Month, and in recognition and in celebration of Black History Month, we wanted to invite someone from our community who can come talk to us. And we have the great pleasure this evening of having Del Smitherman with us, who represents, and actually, Del, you're gonna have to give a better sort of resume of yours than I will. But Del represents the healthcare workers of Union 1199. And 1199 has been very involved in the civil rights movement and lots of other issues because so many of their members are people of color, and they've been really involved in our community and in the city at large doing extraordinary things. And so, Del, we are thrilled to have you with us this evening, and let me turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Katie, and greetings to everyone. Good evening, Community Board 4. So I'll talk about a little bit about who I am and how I arrived here, and then I'll jump into who is 1199 and what's the face of 1199 and some of the stuff that we do. So I'm Del Smitherman. I'm currently the downstate political director for 1199 SEIU. So I cover all of the politics, all of the elections, and everything in between. It's amazing. And as you represent healthcare workers, what a political director is asked to do in that representation of healthcare workers. Everything from housing to social work all falls under me and my team's gamut. So when I say downstate, that's the areas, 25 counties from Albany to Long Island and everything in between. And I actually started out as a member way back when. One of my first campaigns with the union, I was in a shop called Bishop McGovern. Had one of the most benevolent bishops on the side of the building, Bishop McGovern Nursing Home down in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn. But they didn't treat the workers benevolently. And coming from a household that was municipal workers at every generation, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, parents, everyone was a municipal worker here in New York City. I decided to take that upbringing and that knowledge of unions and tried to organize the workers at Bishop McGovern. So it was three of us, three workers trying to organize 200 workers. We bought in the union. They helped us to do a card check. We won the right for a vote, and then we won the vote. But sadly, the boss didn't recognize the representation of the union. So we had to fight in court for 2 years. And every day of those 2 years, the boss threatened us with our livelihood. And it was just a real testament. But you know, nothing that's worthwhile is easy. And after the 2 years, the judge finally decided in our favor. And gladly to say, he also put the ruling retroactive to the original date of the election. So that was a big bonus for us. And the workers at the facility got to see that they did have some skin in the game if they came together and united in one voice. So that was my first campaign for the union. I must have raised some eyebrows because shortly after they brought me on staff to then be a representative of workers. And, you know, from every level of title that I've had, from temporary organizer, I've been parachuted to other states to go help out on elections and being parts of delegations. And now I have this great title of downstate political director. And I love the work that I do representing our healthcare workers and the communities that they come from. So that's a little bit about me. I want to talk a little bit about 1199, and I hope I can share a video, just a couple excerpts from a video. So 1199, I want to make sure I'm not using any vernacular. Local union 1199, SEIU. So the local union is us, 1199. Our international union that we partner with is SEIU, Service Employees International Union. And the face of 1199, 400,000 healthcare workers in 5 states. We are the largest healthcare workers union in the nation. The 5 states are Florida, Maryland, including the District of Columbia, New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts. And those 400,000 members, I want to get a little more granular as I tell you, who do you think of when you go into a healthcare facility? Over 75% women. Women. And then when you think of that, you then take another step more granular. 60% of those women are women of color or immigrant women. So I want you to just think of the layers, the multiple layers that 1199 is representatives of these healthcare workers that are workers in a union first, then mostly women and women of color and immigrant women. You know, think of those layers that we have to represent those members on in their livelihoods at work, but also where they live and in the communities where they live and play. And, you know, in our society, sadly, we still have these norms where we've created mechanisms of oppression, and, you know, they hit the Black and brown community really hard, but even more so, those mechanisms of oppressions and our structural oppression really hits hard at women and women of color and immigrant women. We have a term that we use, the feminization of poverty, where if you took this same skill set of workers, but they were predominantly male, there's no way we'd be fighting for them to have decent wages and shifts that would give them a full day's work. We wouldn't be dealing with this if we didn't have these levels of oppression in our society. So these are the things that we fight every day. Just wanted to share that little granular sense of 1199, the face of our membership. I'm not sure if I have ability to share screen. I think I do, because I'm a—
Hell, you do.
Okay, I'm gonna share a 2, hopefully less than 4 minutes of a 12-minute video, and I'll also drop it in the chat if you want to go through the whole video. It's kind of the history of 1199 as told by Harry Belafonte, and I just wanted to hit 2 major points. So let me share my screen. Remember to hit the sound. Can folks see my screen?
Yes, Tom.
All right. So I'm going to start where it's already queued up and play about a minute, and then I'll jump a little further in the video. So here we go.
1199 played a major role in the civil rights movement, fighting segregation in the Deep South, helping organize the famous March on Washington, standing in solidarity with striking hospital workers in Charleston, South Carolina.
Now, we're not fighting for the hospital workers. We're fighting for all poor people. And when the hospital workers make a little more money, pretty soon everybody makes a little more money.
And just as 1199 members were drawn to civil rights struggles across America, civil rights leaders were drawn to 1199's struggle for economic and social justice here in New York.
I'm fully confident that you will be successful in eliminating poverty wages and winning decent standards in local 1199 contracts.
Throughout the 1970s and 80s, 1199 continued to grow and expand, Even as the national mood changed and organized labor found itself constantly on the defensive.
And I'm just gonna jump to the 10-minute mark. All right, about another minute or so.
To even greater heights.
Well, we're Mr. Big 1199. And what we do every day is to take care of the working people, the people of this city who need health care. We're not special interests. We have special interests. Special interests in what we do and who we take care of.
Together, 1199 continues in the fighting spirit that has always defined it, building strength from its incredible diversity, building power from the active participation of 275,000 members, winning contracts that set the standard for healthcare workers in hospitals and nursing homes, for home care workers everywhere, and fighting on the front lines of every important battle for social and economic justice. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once called 1199 the authentic conscience of the labor movement. From 1932 until today, that's been the union's historic road through its first 75 years.
I'll stop there and I'll make some key points as I continue. So thank you. So every day we try to live up to that standard that Martin Luther King kind of, gave us of the authentic conscience of the labor movement. And we take that to heart. When I shared the face of 1199, that's what we're dealing with every day, fighting for those workers and the communities that they come from on many different levels. And we cannot feel that we are being the authentic conscious without feeling that we're really rooted and part of the social fabric. Even going back to the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King, key people like Harry Belafonte, Ruby Dee, and Ozzie Davis, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and moving to some of the leaders today like Dougie Fresh and Common, Tamika Mallory, Linda Sarsour. These are the type of people that we like to build coalition with and to promote the needs of the people and hopefully deliver to those needs. And we can't always just demand from and deflect what people need onto others, our government, our bosses. Sometimes it has to come from within. In the 60s, 1199, to deal with the housing crisis in the 60s, we built 1199 Plaza, which was affordable housing right here in Manhattan, on the east side, First Avenue, between like 101 and 108. Beautiful apartments, about four major building towers and duplex apartments that we built with union labor, construction labor. We created bonds that our members bought and invested in. And then we created a lottery so we can bring healthcare workers into affordable housing. And we opened up that lottery to the community as well. That was us trying to have a legacy of wanting to be part of the social footprint and social fabric. Whether it was building housing or lending ourselves across the nation and across the country. The 1994 elections in South Africa, the first elections ever where people of color were allowed to vote. We were there, we were counting votes to make sure that the vote was on the up and up. And the result of that election, Nelson Mandela won. On the other side of that victory, we helped then Mayor Dinkins prepare the logistics to bring Nelson Mandela here to New York and share his vision for a united South Africa. we've had delegations across this world as well, as we've taken our labor standards and tried to learn from whether it was South Africa, the Caribbean, Cuba, Spain, where they have some of the largest worker cooperatives, Ireland. We need to be able to be willing to learn from each other if we're gonna overcome some of these challenges. Also, in wanting to do more, we've tried to start building relationships in the community. As representatives of workers, we partner, and sometimes it's not actually a partnership, but we're always expecting better of our bosses, the administrators of our healthcare facilities, who have multi-million-dollar facilities, some even billion-dollar facilities. And we found out over the years that with those facilities come multi-million-dollar supply chains. And in looking deeper into some of the social determinants of health, and which the biggest one is poverty, we found that these hospital structures that were rooted in communities, that they said they wanted to improve community health, but yet their supply chain was going way outside of the community to Texas and Iowa. And we had to make the point one time that you are actually sending dollars to the people who are trying to get rid of healthcare. So you're funding your opponents. Instead of, if you truly want to improve community health, let's start taking that supply chain and investing it in the community to empower the community, to create an economic engine. Hospital facilities need furniture. We have people and merchants who create furniture. Why can't we let them be part of the supply chain? Why can't we work with levels of government to expand their business so they can feed the entire chain in the state? Then you have some soft goods like flowers. We have florists here in New York that you can stretch that supply chain down to. We have wellness people right here in New York. We keep talking about community workers, community healthcare workers. We have that structure right here, whether it's yoga instructors, Pilates instructors. We have that fabric right here, and we were not using it. So now we're challenging the administrators to turn that supply chain right here into the community. Let's create some opportunities for wealth. Let's create some opportunities for parity, and let's build. Before I end and want to open up for some interaction, we also really take our role as healthcare workers to the next level, especially during calamity and disaster. Going back to the Indian Ocean tsunami, after the tsunami, as we sent a delegation to first observe and see what was actually in need of repair and rebuilding. And after the delegation came back, we helped. Of course, we sent money, but that wasn't enough. You can't just send money. We helped fishermen buy boats. We built schools and bought desks and books for the students. And we helped the communities that were seaside communities. We helped them thrive after the tsunami. The earthquake in Haiti, we sent the delegation and we flew supplies in on a plane. Actually, once again, one of our administrators was able to get us a plane and charter a plane so we could fill it with a bunch of supplies and a delegation of healthcare workers that can go respond in the moment. Closer to home, Hurricane Sandy, because of our reputation we have a great reputation of having boots on the ground during elections. So we're really good at canvassing communities. Then Public Advocate Bill de Blasio reached out to us right after Hurricane Sandy, and we helped the city grid out the canvas of the Rockaways and Staten Island. We were actually doing vertical surveys in the buildings to knock on every door to see who was shut in, who couldn't leave their apartment without the elevators because the power was out, which buildings needed generators. This is where we lent our expertise. And even more recently, sadly, the fire at Twin Parks in the Bronx where 19 people perished, 9 of them were children. We were happy to hear that none of our members, which we had a lot of members living in that building, perished, but one member lost 7 of her family members, close family members, children, nieces, nephews, sisters. So we realized that as we're connected in our communities, what hurts one of us hurts us all. And we just want to make sure that everything that we do from every day is in that light of how can we be the social conscience. And I always tell my team, as you build your network, you know, I have a phone where I've got great Congress members, senators, US senators, you know, the governor's team, mayors, all of the electeds and community partners. That's not my network. That's the network that extends to my members when a member calls and says they've been displaced by fire, or during COVID when they couldn't get a body released. That's the network that we extend to our members to help overcome these challenges. These are some of the things that we do every day, and there's a myriad of more things that we do. But we face challenges, and something 1189 always tries to think of is the root of the problem. As we tried to move our administrators to think about their supply chain and how that could be used locally, we want people to remember the root of the problem. When you have basic necessities that aren't being met, basic necessities, people have to have a roof over their head. They must have food in their belly, and they must have an opportunity to earn income so they can continue to provide. Those are the basic tenets of necessity. And of course, your health. Anything extra is an improvement of those basic necessities. And we want to remind people, especially in our levels of government, that we've got to lift those basic necessities before we can start to move on the other layers of improving people's lives through education, job advancement, career advancement. So we truly take this at heart. It is the embodiment of who our membership is, very diverse membership. We've extended ourselves literally across the nation and across the world. And we never think that we are at our best. We're always striving to become our best. So I will stop there. I really appreciated this opportunity and looking forward to some interaction.
Wow, Del, that was great. What the union has accomplished over the last several decades is so impressive. That was, and can I say, like, every organization should have you as their spokesperson. You are great.
Thank you.
Love the documentary too. So I'm sure we probably have some questions. The way we usually do things is that we first ask if there are questions from our committee members, our task force members, and then we go to the attendees and see if they have questions as well. And thank you for being willing to take some questions here. So I have a couple questions, but let me start with others. And Les, I see that your hand is up.
Yes, Del, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. And thanks, George, for allowing you to present. Thank you. I want you to speak to the fact of the original, for the origins of the union. Who started the union and how it morphed into other things? That would be very helpful for the group to know.
Thank you for that question. And trying not to take too long, I did skip over some parts, so that's a great question. This great union started off with a bunch of pharmacists who were trying to have collective voice at the time in the 30s. So a bunch of pharmacists, and they even added some of the terms soda jerks back then. The pharmacists and the soda jerks created the first iteration of 1199, SCIO, 1199 at the time, AFL-CIO at the time. And they were a small union of pharmacists. And as they were looking out across, they saw, and it's actually in the documentation of the video, they saw that there was large disparity from the healthcare workers in New York State that were working for the charitable hospitals at the time. People were working 40+ hours and literally making 30 hours a week. I believe it was the slogan was 32 hours a week on 44 hours, which was at the time unbelievable. And that small union decided that we're gonna bring them into our union and we're gonna give them our voice and help organize their voice. And we're gonna bring justice to these healthcare workers. And it wasn't an easy fight. We had to fight through some of the DOL regulations because at the time hospitals were not allowed to be organized, collective bargaining agreements. So there was a massive fight with the governor, the bishop at the time, and we finally got everybody on the same page and was able to move those workers forward. And that unity between the original pharmaceutical workers, bringing in the healthcare workers, the nurses that were just, being oppressed with their wages and their standards, was the beginning of what we've become today. So they were, a mere couple of thousand people in a small union, but yet that energy has grown into nearly 500,000 people.
Thank
Great
you.
question. Thank you, Leslie.
Great. Tina, I see that your hand is up.